Hi everybody, welcome back to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and this is on my Xbox Series S, and it's really the Series S that has brought me back to playing PUBG an awful lot more than I was. I probably hadn't really picked up PUBG seriously for probably almost a year. I mean, I'd fire it up when there was an update just to kind of see what was going on, but I found it frustrating because, and this is probably more me than anybody else, the fact that a lot of the decisions that PUBG Corp had made, or Crafton, or the developer behind PUBG had made, I disagree with them, and I felt that they were taking away from the core of the game. However, getting the Series S and playing PUBG at the gorgeous 60 frames a second 1080p has reinvigorated my love of the game. And what I do is I just ignore things like what's in the Battle Pass, what's in the Season Pass, ignore some of the other updates, all the way that they roll in new features and then roll them out when the community goes, no, this is rubbish. Ignore all the controversy that's going on about professional PUBG at the moment, and just concentrate on enjoying the game, and especially enjoying solo. So what I thought I would do in this video, I would share my ideas on how you can win PUBG solo chicken dinners with 7 critical decisions that you have to make. An awful lot of luck as well, but 7 critical decisions. And what you're seeing in the background is a solo chicken dinner that I got the other night on Miramar, of all places. So the first decision is, where should you drop? Where should you drop? And remember, with all of these, actually, this is only my opinion. You can play PUBG however you like. It's not like there's a right and a wrong way to play it. But my belief, actually, the core belief in lots of my videos about PUBG is that the important thing in PUBG isn't how many kills you get. It isn't how much damage you do. It's whether you can get yourself to a top 10 situation. If you can get yourself to a top 10 situation regularly, if you then have a little bit of luck and the circle is on your side, there's a very, very good chance you'll win in one of those games where you get into a top 10 situation. That's what it's all about. So, first critical decision, where to drop. Now, for me, it's very important that you jump and glide as far away as you can from the flight path, away from a named location on the map. Preferably fly along a road, jump in a vehicle, and drive even further away from the flight path. Now, in this particular gameplay you're seeing here, is I actually dropped to my favourite place on Miramar, which is these two warehouses where you see I dropped. Where there's 2 warehouses, there's like one of those kind of small little mansion houses and a couple of other small buildings, and you always get quite a bit of loot there. Now, someone does drop with me, so I do have to kill them. And you could argue that I should, in fact, have gone further. But you tend to find, if you fly far enough. Now, on Erangel, this works. On Miramar, it works. On Vikendi, it works. Not so much on the smaller maps, Paramo, Karakin, and Sandhawk, because people can fly to the edge of the map. And lots of people know this tactic now, because the idea of flying far from the flight path to the quiet areas is you're avoiding those early gunfights. Now, the reason why you avoid those early gunfights is because any gunfight that you get into, no matter how much an advantage you have, and I'll talk about this later in the video as well, there's always a chance you'll lose. Even if, the guy is facing the other way and he's using a bandage and you're trying to get him with a headshot, there's a chance you'll miss, he'll turn round and he'll kill you. Especially in early matches, in early game gunfights as well, because this is when the game is at its most laggy, when you've got 100 players on the server, or lots of them shooting at each other, and the actual ping, the actual data that's going backwards and forwards from your console or your PC to the dedicated server and back again, there's lots of it, so the chances of it being accurate are pretty low. So it's all about jumping far so you can avoid those early game gunfights. Now, let's talk about how you engage enemies. And again, this comes down to the idea of you should only engage an enemy if you can definitely kill them and they are a threat to you and you have an advantage. Now, sometimes you've got to engage enemies because they get the jump on you. You know, you'll get hit, you have to turn around and you have to fight them. But if you want to kill someone, you should always be thinking, do I have an advantage here? Because the disadvantage that you are giving yourself when you engage an enemy is you are giving your position away, even if you're using a suppressor, because there could be someone just over the next rise who hears you firing at someone else and goes, aha, trots over the top, and they third party you, they shoot you in the back. So when you want to engage enemies, the first thing to do is to stop what you're doing and listen. Listen for their footsteps. If when you stop, their footsteps stop too, they know where you are and it's time to move. If they don't stop, either they're very clever and they're trying to fake you out, but if they're still running around in that kind of random run you get when people are looting, they don't know you're there. So what you want to do, especially if you're in third person mode, use the third person mode advantage of being able to see round corners to wait for them and wait for your advantage and then kill them then. So the same thing goes to when you're engaging enemies in general. Always wait until you have an advantage. So see if have you got the height advantage? Have you got some cover? Are they looking in a different direction to you? And then you engage. Now, this particular gameplay as well, I'm not sure if I'll show or not. Depends how I cut the video after I've recorded the audio. I do actually have a few pot shots at someone who's a long way away, and I do it because it's a target of opportunity, because there's two guys in the distance who are shooting at each other, and I think, well, maybe if I get a shot into one of them, I might get a kill. They're far enough away where they're not probably going to shoot back at me, and I'm fairly confident there aren't many people around me, but it's still a risk. Even if you think you're on the far side of the map and there's nobody there, there's always a chance there might be someone near. So how you engage enemies, always engage enemies where you have the advantage. Now the next decision you have to make, probably before you engage enemies, is which loadout should you take? Now, I'm not going to tell you which is the best gun, the best meta weapon, the best sniper rifle, or anything like that. However, what I will say is, you go with your close quarters weapon, your SMG or your assault rifle or your shotgun, whatever you like, and your long distance weapon, whether that be a bolt action, a sniper rifle, or a DMR, semi-automatic like M16 or an SKS or the SLR or a Kar 98 or whatever you want to go with. However, there's a few things that I think you should bring with you to give you more chance of winning. And that is, you want to make sure you have a pistol with a couple of mags in it. You want to have smoke grenades, and you want to have throwable grenades, whether that be frags or Molotovs. And I think you really want to aim for a pistol with 2 mags, 3 frags or mollies, and 3 smokes. And you also want to have something like 3 first aids and 5 bandages. And don't bring too much ammunition, especially in solo matches. When you're playing tactically or strategically or passively, you're not going to get into that many gunfights. So you're not going to find yourself, burning through 300 rounds of 5.56 or 200 rounds of 7.6. You're just not going to. However, in those final gunfights, having 4 grenades in your pocket or 3 smoke grenades, I should have mentioned boosts as well. Boosts are empty. You want at least, if you can, 3 painkillers, 3 energy drinks. That'd be good as well. But having smokes and throwables in those final circles makes a massive difference. So tone down the ammo a little bit and make sure you have enough smoke grenades, normal grenades, a pistol with a couple of mags, at least 3 first aids, 5 bandages, and then your boosts. So next decision, how long should you loot for and or play the edge? I'm going to roll these together. So you may well have seen some of my videos where I talk about D23. That's, used to be my main option for winning PUBG solos, and it still works, but D23 means you should always jump far, get far away from the flight path, and you should drive to the 3rd circle and then play the edge. And this especially applies for Erangel and Miramar, not the smaller maps. I kind of came up with D23 when there was only Erangel and Miramar. So the idea is that you jump out of the plane, you jump along a road, you jump in a vehicle, you drive even further away from the flight path, and then you've got a vehicle. You loot up, you wait for the next circle, and then you go to the edge of the next circle, and you get somewhere safe and you loot, and then you go to the next circle and you loot up, and then after that third circle, that's when you start running in on foot. And that still works if the circle is in your favour, and if the circle is on your side of the flight path. So if imagine, say, you're looking at Erangel, and there's a straight northeast to southwest flight path. So the map is split into two. You've got the northwest, and you've got the southeast. Let's say you jump towards the northwestern side of the map. If the remaining circles are always in the northwest, then you're going to be okay doing that because you're going to be on the quiet side. However, if the circle, say, goes to the southeast and goes somewhere like Military Island, playing the edge from that side doesn't make any sense. It's going to be very busy. It's going to be hot. So what you would then do is you do something called a hard shift, where you go all the way to the other side of the map, and you start going in from there. However, I've kind of changed what I do, and some of this has come from Warzone as well. I think lots and lots of players play the edge now. They're really into driving to the edge, and they'll play the edge. They might even drive to the edge even further. Each circle, they're staying on the edge, staying on the edge. And so what happens is, in effect, you end up running into lots of players actually on the edge of the circle, and especially on maps like Miramar, where there's lots of open areas where it's very dangerous to be out in the open on foot. It's bad enough when you're in a vehicle, but especially on foot, you're just going to get killed because lots of people are very good shots now. What I tend to do is I tend to think you have to make a critical decision at some point where instead of playing the edge, you play the centre. And that's what I do in this particular chicken dinner. So I'm playing the edge, and then I start running in, I get into a vehicle, and at that point, when I've got the vehicle, I can hear gunfire around me, there's now no point to playing the edge anymore. There's no tactical or strategic advantage for playing the edge. What I then do is I look at the map, and I think, right, where's the centre of the circle? Is it away from somewhere that's going to be high pop? In other words, does it have a name on the map? And then I'll drive there. I'll normally do a quick loop around for open doors and things like that, or vehicles. I'll hop out, and then I'll camp in the centre. And that's that critical decision you've got to make of looking at the situation around you. What cover have you got going into the next circles, and deciding, actually, it's going to be more dangerous to play the edge now. What I should do is throw the dice, because it's always a throw of the dice when you play the centre, because you don't know if someone's going to be sitting in that corner of that room that you're jumping into. Drive there, jump out. Now, you should keep your vehicle around, because there's a chance you may well have to reposition. And the catch is, when you're in the centre, could be quite a few players around, so you need to be able to reposition fast and safely, and you need to do that with a vehicle. So that's the decision you have to make: how long you should loot for, play the edge, or suddenly play the centre. And that kind of comes to that question: when should you move to the centre? You move to the centre when playing the edge is unsafe, and playing the centre is the least risky proposition. There we go. So our next question we have to answer, next critical decision we have to make, is how you move through the circles. So, the decision on how you move through the smaller circles. And what I tend to think here is just think about what other people do. So when you're looking at the situation around you with the rocks and the trees or the buildings, think, what would I be doing if I wasn't thinking about what I was doing? So a classic example of that is where you'll have one of the final circles, and there'll be some buildings, and say there's 10 players left. There will always be players in those buildings. There will probably be a 3 or 4 players in those buildings, because there'll be players inside those buildings, and other players will have been attracted to the apparent cover that those buildings will give them. Now, they don't really give them cover unless the circle comes to those buildings. If the circle moves away from those buildings, the problem they all have is as soon as they start jumping out of those buildings or coming behind the cover from the walls around those buildings, they're going to see each other and they're all going to start shooting each other. And then the people on the other side of the circle will be able to hear them, see them, and start firing at them. So, the decision you make on how to move through smaller circles generally is around the edge of the circle if you can, away from buildings and obvious cover where people are going to be, especially buildings, because people are attracted to them. And then the final decision you have to make is, when should you use smokes in the final circles? And that one kind of answers itself in the question. You should use smokes in the final circles. Smokes are tactically so very, very important. And when you watch professional PUBG players, they're always using smokes as cover, because as soon as you put a smoke down, although it doesn't really give you cover, a bullet can go through it. As soon as people can't see you, it might as well be cover, because when a smoke grenade pops, it covers quite a large area. So you can move around, and you'll see at the end of this chicken dinner, the circle moves away from me to someone who has the advantages when it would come to the final gunfight. He has the height, he has cover, he's got a rock he can stand on. But because I pop a couple of smoke grenades, that enables me to cover the open ground, and it is totally open, there is no cover at all. And then engage him, and then I have a bit of luck in the fact that he comes looking for me and I slip behind him and then I shoot him. So smokes are so important, and in fact I didn't mention it as well, but you'll see as well near the end when I actually use my pistol as well to take someone down, when I managed to completely miss someone with my Vector. So always have some smokes in your loadout, but always be thinking of them when you get into those final circles. Where have I got to go? Is there any cover? Right, and that's the point when you should use those smoke grenades. There's no point dying with smoke grenades in your backpack. Sure, there's going to be times when you run out of smoke grenades, or you couldn't find too many. You've had to use them in similar situations earlier on in the game. But that's when they come in most handy, is in those final circles where you can create your own cover. You can create confusion for the enemy, and you probably, with a bit of luck, if you followed these 7 critical decisions, will be able to get a PUBG solo chicken dinner. So there we go. Hopefully that's a helpful video. If you've got any questions or comments about PUBG, please put them down below. I do use those for ideas for future videos. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and I will see you again soon.